It is 83 degrees outside and it's October, but I am going to make a Halloween card for you today. Hi everyone, I'm Mindy Eggen and welcome to my channel. I decided to do something a little bit different today. I hope you'll join me. I'm going to be doing a little stenciling, a little ink blending, and just having some fun making a Halloween card. Let's get started. So I'm going to start off my project by doing some stenciling and some ink blending, but I'm going to double stencil my project. I'm going to start with the Arches stencil from Simon Says Stamp, and I also have the Dots on Dots. I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock. This is Neenah Classic Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And because I already know I'm going to layer this on top of some orange cardstock, I'm going to go ahead and trim this down to the size that I want. So I'm just bringing in my Tim Holtz paper cutter, and I'm going to trim this down to about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Now that I have the size that I want, I'm going to pick the Arches stencil size that I want. So this is definitely too big. The Arches stencil not only has the arches, but it also has the masks. So if you wanted to do the outside instead of the inside. So pretty sure this is the one that I previously used. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that one and move all of these out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my magnetic station here. This is from Tonic. There's a couple different ones of these out there. I like using my Tonic one. So I'm going to use this to help hold my stencils because I have 2 stencils I'll be doing at the same time. So this is going to help me hold those in place. So I'll take my cardstock and I just have some repositionable tape that I'm going to put on the back. Place this down onto my surface, so that's going to hold my cardstock in place. Then I'm going to bring in the domed arches, is what this is technically called. I will also have everything linked down below in my video description if you're interested in any of these products. I'm going to line this up so that these margins are even on each side and the top and bottom. So once I have that in place, I'm actually going to hold this down with some tape, I think. Normally, I would say I use my magnets because it's a magnetic work surface, but being that I'm going to be double stenciling or layering up my stencils, I want to make sure that this does not move. So I am using my Satin masking tape from Ulta New. The colors that I'm using today are Fired Brick, Carved Pumpkin, and Scattered Straw in the Distress Oxides. I have my blending tools for each of the colors. I have a little ink stand that I'm going to have set off on the side. I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is the Scattered Straw. So I'm just going to use my domed blending tool for this. Pick up some of the ink. And then come down here towards the bottom is where I like to put my lightest color. Just using some circular motions, go about 1/3 of the way up. Then I can put that one away and get out my Carved Pumpkin. Pick up some of the ink for Carved Pumpkin and come right up. Ooh, that's really juicy. Holy cow. Come in the Carved Pumpkin. Blend a little bit into that Scattered Straw. I'm going to bring my other blending tool in and kind of smooth that out a little. Next, I have a Fired Brick. Once again, grab my blending tool, pick up some ink. Maybe I'll tap off this time. Oh yeah, that one's super juicy too. And come in and blend that from the top and into that Carved Pumpkin. Well, with the inks being so juicy, it's pretty easy to blend. Oxides are pretty easy to begin with, but you add in that they're super juicy, it's even easier. So that is the first layer. Now I'm going to wipe this down. Let's get off some of this excess ink. I don't very often craft, you could say live like this. I am recording as I'm creating, but I thought, I had done it for a different video, so I'm giving it a try. Now I'm going to bring in this dots on dots stencil. So I'm going to pretty much be, what do they call this? Like double stenciling. Hold that down with my magnets, and I'm going to come back over the top with these same colors. So just right over the top, I still have that stencil in place underneath. Kind of come down into that orange a little bit for an overlap. I don't know if I need to reapply any ink here. Go back over the middle area, kind of down into that yellow, and then maybe a little bit more scattered straw. This is just going to give a subtle look to our background. The main focus is going to be our pumpkin. So I am in full Halloween mood. It's October, even though it is like 80 some degrees outside and it was like 90 yesterday. A little bit up here. So we'll see how this is looking. Take my magnets off. And that worked out pretty good. So now I can go ahead and remove my tape. Now, if I would have gotten a little bit too much ink or too heavy-handed, it might have gone under my stencils. So I'm going to be a little careful while I'm removing this so I don't smear anything. Yep, I did get a little bit there, and that's just because my ink pads were so, for some reason, very, very saturated today. Not really sure if it's because it's just been so warm outside, but I'm okay with it. I think that still looks kind of cool. It did it actually all the way around because I got so heavy-handed and there's so much ink on the brushes. I think that's pretty cool. So I am just going to leave that. I'm going to put my tools away, clean up my work surface and stencils, and then I'll get started on the next part of the project. Now, also just to point out, in order to remove this from my work surface, I'm just going to pick this up and kind of twist it. Rub my hand over anywhere that had that repositionable tape, and I'm going to let this dry for a minute, and then I'm going to rub my hand over the back to remove that. Okay, now I'm going to be creating my pumpkins. So I have the Stack O' Pumpkins die set, and this actually is all the pumpkins and the stems all in one piece. I went ahead and picked up my colors. I just grabbed these from my scrap drawer. I think these two are Lawn Fawn, and this one is definitely from Hero Arts. I believe it is Papaya. Now to do my die cutting, since this is such a small thing, I'm going to bring in my compact cutter from Hero Arts. So there are suction cups at the bottom that will stick down to my work surface so the compact cutter doesn't move. I'm going to grab my plates and bring in my pumpkins. If I can pick it up. Oh my gosh, I can't pick up anything. So I'm just going to trim this piece of cardstock down. So that way it fits onto my cutting plate. And then I can just put my top plate on there and run this through. So now when I pull that top plate off, all of my pumpkins and the stems are all cut. So this creates 3 cute little spooky pumpkins that are going to stack on top of each other. Get out my little pokey tool to pick up all the pieces. And then I'm also going to do some stems. And I don't really need to do the whole thing, so I'll just trim a smaller piece. Put those back in my scrap bin. Grab my die, and I really only need this part. I don't need to do the rest. So place that onto my green cardstock. Pretty sure this is cilantro. And then now I have some stems, although green pumpkins would be pretty fun. So I don't need those. Put that off on the side. Need my stems. And now I can put my plates away because I don't need to die cut this anymore. So I'm going to just pop out these little pieces from the pumpkin and grab my stems. I really only need one stem. So what I'm going to do is trim out little pieces of yellow cardstock to fit behind here. So it's going to be like a backer piece. So I'll do that. Yeah, that'll work. So I'm just going to grab my liquid glue, add it back here, definitely around the eyes and the mouth, because that's where I want the yellow cardstock to show through. Pick this up and I can place this onto my yellow cardstock. So that's going to give me some eyes in the background, makes it look like it's lit up. Now do my other pieces. I'll let that dry for a minute. Add some liquid glue behind this little guy. We'll put that one up there. Should be able to fit both of them on here. And this guy. So now what I'll do is just trim this all out so that none of that yellow is really showing. And my last little guy here, just kind of getting my scissors a little bit underneath the actual pumpkin. I could have cut little squares, things like that to fit it better on the back, but this is actually going to kind of be nice to give it a little bit more dimension behind it. Okay, so there are my 3 cute little jack-o'-lanterns. So I'm going to stack them just like this, and I just need this little guy at the very top. Place that right up there because all the other ones are going to be covered, so I don't need to worry about it. So now I'll add a little bit of liquid glue to the bottom of this guy and we'll put him here. I could have also probably gone in and shaded around my pumpkins. That would have been a nice way to just give them a little bit more color and shape. But I'm kind of going for just quick and easy. There. So now we have this cute little stack of jack-o'-lanterns. Now the last thing I need to do is a sentiment. And I am going to be using this trick or treat stamp set. I like Too Cute to Spook, and it also has a coordinating die with it to be able to cut it out. There is also a separate die that would cut out the words and the shadow, but I'm just going to be doing some stamping today. So I'm just using the Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, tuck that down in my corner, and I'll go ahead and grab this stamp here. And instead of just stamping it in black ink, I think I'll do a little bit of heat embossing. So I'll pick that up with the door of my Misty, make sure that's lined up down in that bottom corner. Going to use my Simon Says Stamp anti-static powder tool. Since I am going to be heat embossing, we want to make sure we do that every time. And for heat embossing, I'm going to do Versafine Clair, which is a really nice black ink that stays wet for a little while, and I'm going to heat emboss it with clear embossing powder. So I'll just take this and ink up my Too Cute to Spook. Stamp this down onto my white cardstock. See how that's stamped, which I'm pretty sure is going, I usually Versafine never fails, but I've also had this ink pad for probably like 5 years. So I will just ink that up one more time. Make sure that I'm tucked into that bottom corner so it lines up perfectly. Stamp that down one more time. There. So now I'm going to take some clear embossing powder, which this one happens to be from Gina K Designs, and I have this in a little container. I actually just pick up these containers in the school supply section. Sprinkle on that embossing powder and tap off that excess. There we go. So you'll know you have everything covered when it's nice and cloudy looking. And I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up with my tidy towel and pick this up right away. I'm going to heat emboss this with my Wow embossing tool. And so you'll know that you have everything heat embossed and it's all melted because now it's nice and shiny. All that cloudiness went away. Now I'm going to just put this stamp set back so I don't lose anything. Put that back in its storage pocket and then grab out the coordinating die. So this set actually has quite a few coordinating dies for the sentiments and also the icons or the images. So I'm going to grab the coordinating die for my sentiment. Get that lined up over there. My cardstock did warp a little bit from the heat embossing, so I really want to make sure I'm going to hold this down with some Easy C tape so it doesn't shift when I die cut. So I really got my head in there to look over it, make sure that that's even. We'll see how good of a job I did. Hold that down with my tape, and then I'll run this through my die cut machine. While I was die cutting, I used that same piece of paper and just die cut it out 2 more times. This is a great way to just use the rest of that cardstock. I honestly am not a huge fan of saving a bunch of scraps because it just takes up so much room that I don't have. So by die cutting it multiple times, I can not only layer to create some dimension, but I'm also using my cardstock. So I'm using up my pieces. I'm going to use that liquid glue once again to add that to the back of my sentiment and get these layered up. So I have 2 layers here. And it's just 80-pound cardstock, so it's not going to be super thick, but just enough. Make sure everything is lined up. And then I'll do it one more time. So I have all the components to create my card. I am going to start putting this together, but I do want to layer this up. So another thing I'm going to do is I have another piece of white cardstock here. And a lot of times I do layer up my pieces. I put at least 1 piece of cardstock behind my panels. And I'll explain why in just a second here. We're going to cut this to a little under 3 3/4 and a little under 5 inches. My ink blended panel is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So by cutting it just a little bit smaller, that should fit perfectly where nothing will show on the sides. Now, one of the reasons that I do this is I do like to add foam tape behind my panels. But if my cardstock is too thin, like 80 doesn't seem very thin, but if it's an 80-pound cardstock, a lot of times it's going to show the strips of foam tape behind it, like if I take a picture or if I'm putting it up to display. So by adding another piece of cardstock, it's kind of diffusing that a little bit. I'm adding a little bit to that background. Let's double check this. Yeah, that's 5 3/4. So now I'll layer these. Oh, I still had sticky stuff back there. That's right. That's why I was sticking to everything. So I just will add a tape runner to this back panel. Put this over that piece I just trimmed out. So there, that adds a little bit to it. Now I am going to add foam tape. So I have a big roll here from Alta New. I'm just going to trim all these out. Now I'm actually thinking I want to find some foam tape that's wider, takes up, a little bit more of the back of my panel. So I think I'm going to look for that. I love the Alta New foam tape. I want something just a little wider. and a little piece down here. So then I can go through, remove the backing to all of these foam tape pieces, and then I can place this over the top. There we go. And now I have my pumpkins and my sentiment. And I'm also going to be adding some foam tape to that. So if you were looking to make this card and mail it to somebody, you might not want to use this much foam tape, but most of the recipients that I'm going to be giving Halloween cards to are going to be handed out. I will probably give some to my son's teachers at the school, maybe the kids there. So I'm okay with layering this up. So there's my stack of pumpkins and then also some foam tape back here. So you could maybe not add foam tape to the sentiments or not add foam tape to that ink blended panel. Or maybe you do and you'll just need to pay probably some extra postage. So now I can place these on the front of the card here. I want them both kind of diagonal from each other and a little bit overlapping the arch. I'm actually recreating a card that I had done for Simon Says Stamp. I sent it in to them, so I don't have it, but I wanted to remake this card in a video. So that's why everything is so well thought out, just because I already thought of it all. I just have to recreate it. So I'll pull off the backing here and then grab my pumpkins and have that right there. Super cute. And then one last thing I want to do, because I can't help but want to add sparkles, is I'm going to take the Stickles. This is the unicorn Stickles, and I'm going to add it to the faces. I probably also could have just done like a yellow glitter or gold glitter. Didn't quite think of that at the time. But I'm going to add just a little bit of the Stickles to the center of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Unicorn Stickles is probably one of my favorites. I think they even have a yellow Stickles too. But I don't know, unicorn just looks good on everything. There we go. Too cute to spook. Absolutely adorable. Love this stack of pumpkins. So I think this is good for not only the front of cards, but you could probably put this on treat bags if you're giving out treats for Halloween. Really easy to create. Grab your die cut machine and just do a bunch of die cutting sometime if you're watching TV or, just want to do something that doesn't take a lot of concentration. Die cutting is great for that. So really cute set. I hope you enjoyed today's video. All of the supplies are listed down below in the video description and over on my blog. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.